The training facility hummed with the usual pre-combat energy, that electric buzz of anticipation mixed with just enough fear to keep things interesting. I stood there, all four of my arms crossed in what I hoped looked like professional confidence, watching the new batch of recruits filter into the arena. 27 species represented today. Not bad. Not bad at all. My name is Vorkath, and I have been running combat training for the Galactic Coalition Defense Force for nearly 8 solar cycles now. I have seen it all. The proud Kentari warriors with their energy shields. The swift Peltorian scouts with their plasma rifles. The methodical Grenthic soldiers with their molecular disruptors. Every species brings something to the table, some unique advantage that evolution or technology has granted them, and then there are the humans. The humans, let me tell you something about humans that the recruitment brochures do not mention. They are completely, utterly, magnificently insane. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible. Because when you have been in this business as long as I have, you learn to appreciate a little insanity. It keeps things fresh. Today's human representative was named Marcus Webb. Average height for his species, perhaps 1.7 meters tall, with that peculiar brown hair that seems to grow wild no matter what they do to it. He wore the standard issue training uniform, but there was something about the way he carried himself that made my secondary eyes twitch. That slight smile. That too casual stance. That look of someone who knows something you do not. I have learned to fear that look. All right, listen up. I bellowed, my voice carrying across the arena through natural acoustics and 16 well-placed amplifiers. Welcome to Advanced Combat Training, Level 4. Today's exercise is simple. You will face off against training drones in a simulated combat environment. The drones will be armed. You will be armed. First one to achieve 5 confirmed eliminations without getting tagged wins bragging rights and a 3-day pass. The recruits murmured among themselves, that typical mix of nervousness and bravado. I let them have their moment. Then I dropped the hammer. However, I raised my primary right arm. There is one rule. No projectile weapons. I repeat, no projectile weapons. Energy weapons only. Plasma, laser, particle beam, whatever your species prefers. But nothing that throws actual physical mass at a target. We had an incident last cycle with a Droganthi railgun that is still being repaired. So, energy weapons only. Are we clear? A chorus of affirmatives echoed back. Everyone nodded. Everyone understood, except Marcus. Marcus just smiled wider, should have known right then. Should have called it off. Should have done a lot of things. But hindsight, as the humans say, is 20/20. The first few recruits went through without incident. Typical performances. Good, solid, by-the-book combat tactics. The Kentari recruit scored 3 eliminations before taking a hit. Respectable. The Peltorian got 4. Very respectable. A Xinthian engineer, bless her hearts, somehow managed 2 eliminations with what appeared to be a repurposed mining laser and pure determination. I made a note to watch that one. Engineers who can fight are worth their weight in processed titanium. Then came Marcus's turn. He stepped into the arena with that same infuriating smile, and I noticed something odd. He was carrying a case. A long, rectangular case that looked like it had been through several wars already. The material was some kind of treated wood and leather, ancient by modern standards, with metal clasps that had oxidized in interesting patterns. Webb. I called out. What is in the case? My weapon, sir. He replied cheerfully. Too cheerfully. Your energy weapon? I clarified, because with humans you always need to clarify. Well, sir, about that. Marcus set the case down and opened it with a theatrical flourish that should have come with its own soundtrack. Technically, you said no projectile weapons. You did not say anything about tension-based kinetic energy delivery systems from Earth's medieval period. I blinked. All 4 eyes. Simultaneously, inside the case was what appeared to be 2 pieces of curved wood connected by a string. And a collection of pointed sticks. What in the 17 voids is that? I demanded. This, sir, is a crossbow. Marcus lifted the contraption out of the case with the kind of reverence usually reserved for holy relics. Manufactured approximately 1,000 years ago on Earth, give or take a century or 2. Found it in an antique shop on Proxima Station. The owner thought it was a decorative piece. Cost me 12 credits and a bottle of Andorian whiskey. Several recruits had gathered closer now, fascinated despite themselves. I should have stopped it right there. Should have said no. Should have exercised the common sense that 8 years of military training had supposedly instilled in me. Instead, I said, explain. Well, sir, you see, projectile weapons use chemical propulsion or magnetic acceleration to launch a projectile, correct? They project the projectile, hence the name. But this beauty. He stroked the crossbow like it was a pet. This uses mechanical tension. You pull back this string, which bends these limbs, storing potential energy. When you release the trigger, that energy converts to kinetic energy, launching the bolt. It is not technically projecting anything. It is just releasing stored mechanical energy. The silence in that arena was deafening. You found a loophole, I said slowly. I found a loophole, sir. In my weapons restriction. In your very specific weapons restriction, sir. Using a weapon that predates faster-than-light travel by several centuries. By approximately 700 years, sir, depending on which FTL drive you use as a baseline. I looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at me. 26 other recruits looked at both of us. Somewhere in the facility, a ventilation system hummed. A monitor beeped. The universe continued its slow, inevitable march toward heat death, and then I laughed. I could not help it. The sheer audacity. The absolute, unmitigated gall of this human to find a 1,000-year-old weapon, drag it across 3 star systems, and use it to exploit a technicality in military regulations. This was why humans were simultaneously the most frustrating and most valuable species in the Coalition. They thought sideways. They thought backwards. They thought in directions that most species did not even have words for. Fine. I wheezed, still laughing. Fine. You want to use your antique tension device, you use your antique tension device. But Webb, if you do not score at least 4 eliminations with that thing, I am going to make you explain your loophole logic to Admiral Threnody. In writing. In triplicate. Marcus's grin could have powered a small starship. Sir, yes sir. He loaded one of those pointed sticks, which he had called a bolt, into the crossbow. The mechanism made a series of clicking sounds that seemed impossibly primitive compared to the whine of charging energy weapons around us. But there was something satisfying about those clicks. Something final. The arena simulation activated. 5 drones materialized in the air, their sensors glowing red as they locked onto Marcus. Standard protocol. They would start with warning shots, then escalate to actual stunning charges. The point was to train recruits to move, to think, to survive under fire. Marcus did not move. He raised the crossbow, aimed at the nearest drone, and pulled the trigger. The bolt flew. And here is the thing about energy weapons. They are clean. They are precise. They are instant. You see the beam, you see the impact, you see the result, all in the space of a microsecond. Your sensors can track them. Your shields can deflect them. Your armor can absorb them. They are predictable. A sharpened piece of wood flying through the air at 70 meters per second is not predictable. The drone's sensors did not register a threat until the bolt had already punched through its central processor. It did not see it coming because it was designed to detect energy signatures, not solid objects moving at subsonic speeds. The machine dropped from the air like a puppet with cut strings, sparking and dying before it hit the ground. 4 drones, remaining 4 very confused drones, watched, transfixed, as Marcus calmly reloaded his crossbow. The other drones had started firing now, but he had already moved, rolling behind a barrier with the kind of grace that spoke of actual training, not just enthusiasm. Energy bolts scorched the air where he had been standing. You know the beautiful thing about primitive weapons, sir? Marcus called out from behind cover, and I could hear that insufferable smile in his voice. No power signature. No energy buildup. No thermal bloom. Just good old-fashioned kinetic murder. He popped up, fired, and another drone fell. 3 remaining. The crowd of recruits was dead silent now, watching this impossible display. A human, using a weapon that should have been in a museum, outmaneuvering combat drones designed to train elite soldiers. It should not have been working. It should have been absurd. It was absurd, but it was also working. Marcus moved like water between the training barriers, and I found myself leaning forward despite my better judgment. 3 drones left, and they had adapted their tactics. Smart programming, these machines. They were spreading out, trying to triangulate his position, forcing him into a crossfire situation that would leave him nowhere to hide, except Marcus was not hiding anymore, sprinted directly toward the nearest drone, crossbow held low, and every tactical bone in my body screamed that this was suicide. The drone locked on, charged its weapon, prepared to fire at point-blank range. Marcus slid, actually slid, like he was stealing a base in that bizarre Earth sport they call baseball, dropping beneath the drone's firing arc while simultaneously raising the crossbow at an angle that should have been impossible. The bolt caught the drone right in its anti-gravity generator, and the machine went into an uncontrolled spin before crashing into the arena wall with a spectacular shower of sparks. 2 drones remaining, and they were not happy about it. Is he insane? Whispered a Peltorian recruit next to me. Yes, I replied calmly. But that appears to be a feature, not a bug. The remaining drones had decided that standard protocols were not working. They switched to aggressive mode, which meant they would coordinate their attacks and use lethal force simulation. Red lights turned orange. Warning parameters disengaged. This was the part where most recruits either proved themselves or got stunned unconscious for their trouble. Marcus had reached cover again, but barely. He was breathing hard now, I could see that even from my position. The crossbow required physical effort to reload, unlike energy weapons with their convenient power cells. Every shot demanded that he manually pull back that string, reset that mechanism, load another bolt. It was inefficient. It was exhausting. IT was also completely throwing off every tactical algorithm those drones possessed. Computer. I called out. Display drone tactical analysis. A holographic screen appeared in front of me, showing the combat AI's attempts to predict Marcus's next move. The probability matrices were going haywire. 83% chance he would retreat to better cover. 79% chance he would attempt a flanking maneuver. 67% chance he would surrender. 0% accuracy on any of it, because the drones were analyzing him like he was using modern weapons with modern tactics. They were calculating energy weapon recharge rates that did not exist. They were predicting firing angles based on laser targeting systems he did not have. They were operating on assumptions that became completely invalid the moment you introduced a weapon from humanity's feudal era. Marcus popped out from behind cover, but instead of firing, he threw something. An actual physical object, tumbling end over end through the air. The drones tracked it instantly, sensors screaming about incoming projectiles, adjusting their positions to evade. IT was his water canteen. While they were busy dodging a plastic bottle, Marcus had already moved to a different position entirely. He fired, and another drone fell. One remaining. "Oh, that is just cheating," shouted a Kentari recruit, but she was laughing while she said it. The final drone was not laughing. It was, in fact, learning. The combat AI had finally adjusted its threat assessment protocols. It stopped trying to predict energy weapon behavior and started treating Marcus like what he was, an unpredictable biohazard armed with historical weaponry and absolutely zero respect for conventional warfare. The drone went defensive, putting distance between itself and Marcus, using its mobility advantage to stay out of crossbow range while peppering his position with suppressing fire. Smart. Textbook tactics, actually. Force the opponent to stay in cover, wear down their ammunition, wait for an opening. Except Marcus only had 3 bolts left, and he knew it. I could see him thinking, calculating. His eyes tracked the drone's movement pattern, looking for something. What was he looking for? The machine was too far away for an accurate shot, moving too erratically to predict, and showing no signs of making a mistake. Then Marcus did something that made me question every assumption I had ever made about humans, aimed at the wall, not at the drone. At the solid durasteel wall behind the drone, he fired. The bolt hit the wall at a precise angle, and for a moment, I thought he had simply missed. A wasted shot. But then I saw it. The bolt had struck one of the wall's support struts, the ones that held up the energy barriers we used for advanced training scenarios. The impact, combined with the bolt's momentum and the specific angle of entry, caused the strut to bend just slightly, just enough. The energy barrier flickered. Not much. Maybe a tenth of a second. But in that tenth of a second, it went from being a solid wall of contained plasma to empty air. The drone's sensors, which had been using that barrier as a reference point for spatial positioning, suddenly registered a topology change in the arena. Its AI hesitated. Just for a moment. Just for a fraction of a second, Marcus was already firing his second-to-last bolt. IT caught the drone mid-compensation, right in the sensor array, and the machine went dark before it even hit the ground. Silence, complete, total, absolute silence. 0.5 eliminations. 0 tags received. Using a weapon that was older than most species' space programs, Marcus stood up, breathing hard, sweat running down his face, and casually slung the crossbow over his shoulder like he had just finished a light workout instead of completely revolutionizing my understanding of asymmetric warfare. "So," he called out, still catching his breath. "Do I get that 3-day pass, or should I explain the physics of medieval siege warfare to Admiral Threnody?" The arena erupted. Recruits from 24 species were cheering, shouting, demanding to know where they could get their own crossbows. The Peltorian recruit who had questioned his sanity was now trying to bribe him for lessons. A Xinthian engineer was already sketching what looked like an improved crossbow design on her datapad. Even the Kentari, who traditionally viewed anything less than energy weapons as primitive garbage, were nodding with grudging respect. Walked down to the arena floor, all 4 arms still crossed, trying to maintain some semblance of authority even though I wanted to laugh until my respiratory system collapsed. "Webb," I said as I approached. "Sir." He snapped to attention, or at least to what humans considered attention, which was approximately 70% proper military bearing and 30% barely contained smugness. That was the most ridiculous, absurd, tactically unsound, regulation-exploiting performance I have ever witnessed in my entire career. Thank you, sir. I am not finished. It was also brilliant, innovative, adaptable, and precisely the kind of outside-the-box thinking that makes humans either the best allies or the worst enemies in the known galaxy. His smile faltered slightly, like he was not sure if he was being praised or reprimanded. Good. Keep him off balance. That is what he had been doing to those drones, after all. You get your 3-day pass, I continued. But you also get a new assignment. Starting next cycle, you are going to teach a course on unconventional warfare tactics. And you are going to explain to every single recruit exactly how you just defeated military-grade combat drones with technology that predates fusion reactors. Sir, I would be honored, sir. Also, you are going to fill out an incident report explaining why we now need to add medieval weaponry to our prohibited items list. Ah. His smile dimmed considerably. How long should this report be, sir? As long as it takes to make sure nobody else finds the same loophole you just exploited. I am thinking somewhere around 50 pages. Single-spaced. With diagrams. That seems excessive, sir. You just defeated our training system with a weapon from the year 1000. Excessive is apparently your specialty. The other recruits were crowding around now, bombarding Marcus with questions. How did he aim without electronic targeting? Where did the bolts come from? Could he really teach them to use primitive weapons? Was Earth full of warriors who fought like this? I listened to his answers with half an ear while my mind raced through the implications. Because here is the thing about humans that most species do not understand until it is too late. They are not just innovative. They are not just stubborn. They are not just crazy enough to bring medieval weapons to a modern battlefield. They remember, every species in the galaxy has a military history. We all fought wars before we reached the stars. But most of us, once we developed energy weapons and space travel, we put away our primitive tools. We moved on. We evolved past such things, humans? Humans kept everything. Every weapon. Every tactic. Every trick and trap and desperate gambit from 10,000 years of constant warfare. They studied it. They preserved it. They turned their entire violent history into a reference library of how to hurt people more efficiently, and now they were in the coalition, bringing all that historical knowledge with them, was going to need to update a lot of training protocols. All right, everyone, back to your positions. I bellowed. Show is over. We have 16 more recruits to cycle through today, and I promise you, none of them will be as entertaining as Webb. The crowd dispersed reluctantly. Marcus started packing up his crossbow with the care of someone handling a priceless artifact, which I supposed it technically was. Webb, I said quietly, so only he could hear. One more thing. Sir? Where exactly can I get one of those crossbows? Asking for a friend. Who is me? I am the friend. His laugh echoed through the arena, and somehow, despite the chaos, despite the broken training protocols, despite the mountain of paperwork this was going to generate, I found myself laughing too. Humans. Completely, utterly, magnificently insane, and thank the stars they were on our side, because if there was one thing this day had taught me, it was that when humans said no projectile weapons, they heard we need to get creative. When they faced impossible odds, they found impossible solutions. When the universe gave them rules, they found the spaces between the rules and made those spaces their own. Marcus finished packing his crossbow and gave me a casual salute that would have gotten any other recruit disciplined, just nodded and let him go. Some things, I had learned, were worth bending the rules for, even if those things were 1,000 years old and made of wood.